Welcome to My Money, Your Money, a talk show on generational wealth, wealth management, and personal finance. Now introducing our host, Ms. Brigette Lumpkins.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to My Money, Your Money, where we talk about all things money. Brought to you by our generous sponsors, Jasmine and Dover Accident Attorneys, the AARP, and the Palm Beach Solid Waste Authority. I'm your host, Brigette Lumpkins. I earned an MBA from Wharton and have worked at such firms as Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, and Barclays, serving institutional and private clients and raising capital for private investment funds. I'm excited to welcome our guest, Jasmine Brunson, tonight. She's the founder of Blockchain Culture and Sena Labs. Jasmine is a data scientist and DJ from Prince George's County, Maryland. Welcome, Jasmine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Brigette. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Well, as you know, we've been doing this 4-part series on crypto to educate our audience as to the basics of blockchain, tokens, NFTs, and gaming. And you are, we saved the best for last with you. You're here to talk to us about Web3 and the Metaverse. And I'm so excited because I know a lot of people don't even know what that means. So let's start from the beginning. Everybody's talking about Web3 and I want to learn all about it. But can you start with Web 1 and Web 2 first with examples?
Yeah, for sure. So Web 1 is the first iteration of the World Wide Web, which was created by Tim Berners-Lee in 1991. So essentially, we had static pages, HTML pages where people can populate information, this, that, and the third. Then you have a next step, which is Web 2. And Web 2 essentially was user-generated content where we could share it through social platforms such as like Instagram, Facebook. If you can go back to the MySpace days, that was kind of like the first iteration of like how we saw social media and how we saw the network effect populate. So now we're getting into this world of Web 3, and we have to also point out the issues with Web 2 and Web 1 in the beginning. The issue with what Web 2 was doing was that it was giving more power to the institutions, such as the Facebook, such as the Amazons, the Googles, to kind of data mine and kind of use people's data without their knowledge and monetize off of it. But now with Web 2, people can monetize off of their own data and they can create their own decentralized applications. So now we're talking about a web where we can use blockchain technology as leverage instead of just focusing on what, the malpractice that these other companies are doing, mining people's data without their knowledge.
So, okay, so you're saying Web 1 was like read only, like a PDF file, just read only. And then Web 2 is read and write, where users can create their own content, but the money generated from that rested in the platform builders, right? And then Web 3 is where the users you and me who generate content can also monetize and profit from that. And it doesn't just all accrue to Mark Zuckerberg or whoever.
Absolutely. Now the users, it's now us owning our data and monetizing it, and then also creating our own applications, right? And so this whole world of Web 3, it kind of gets misconstrued. I know a lot of people just kind of throw around the word for like parlance. It sounds really nice to investors and stuff like that. But all Web 3 is the next iteration. This idea, this next iteration of what the web could be like if us as users can now be the owners of data, now be the owners of certain currencies that's transacted through the web.
Okay, so I wanted to drill down on that a little bit more. So first question is this a future tense conversation or is Web3 happening now? Or does it exist now? Are people doing this now, what you're talking about?
That's a very contentious question. And I would say, yes, we are working towards it, but we are breaking things every single day. And what I mean by breaking things, and this happens with any type of technology, what I mean by breaking things is there's been a lot of outrage from certain people about inclusivity of Web3 and gatekeeping and this, that, and the third. But essentially what's going to have to happen is all the people that, of course, use the internet already, who are already using cryptocurrencies, everything like that. I'm a strong proponent of them just stopping what they're doing and just building their own stuff. That's how we're going to make Web3 a much more inclusive and inviting epicenter than what Web2 was. I feel in my experience and my perspective, and then also it's just understanding that like this thing is for everyone. Like this is no this is no gatekeeping. This is no you have to do have a whole degree or PhD to do like no like you just need to learn how to code. You need to learn how to code, build a solid team, build a solid foundation, and build what you want to build. And there's tons of open source code out there too. So there's no gatekeeping here, and that's one thing that I know. There's a lot of people from the community that are standing firm with this whole Web3 situation.
So what you just said made me think of something, because I love what you were saying. It's like anybody can build it. But in actuality, anybody can't build it, right? So the people who rule in Web 2, let's talk about like the dominant personalities on social media that are building content that obviously they profit from, but also the companies, the platforms, Instagram, et cetera, profit from. They don't necessarily code. And certainly when I'm on Facebook tapping away and generating content that's mined, and ads are driven to the people who are interacting with me based on the nature of the content that they're consuming that I produce. I don't have to, I know I'm not profiting from that, but I'm also not really contributing anything other than creativity. Now you're asking people to not only create their content, but to build it at the same time, which is kind of a different skill set. So how accessible really is this?
Brigette, I'm glad you asked that. So I'm a coder, I'm a native coder. I've been coding since I was 16. There are folks that I've known who, never touched code and everything like that, but have tapped into this whole tech industry. And they've done it through no code programs. So you can essentially not know how to code and still code. Like there are no code programs that are out there where you can just use human language to build what you want to build. And like I was saying earlier, it's a whole epicenter of things that we're not taught. Unfortunately, our community is not taught that. But what I'm about, and what a lot of people that I'm around in this whole crypto industry, especially the Black folk in this space, we're always propagating this information and sharing it, because there's no point in just keeping it to yourself. So there's no code applications that folks can use who are interested in learning how to code. And then also, there's certain open source platforms, and also, always reach out to a friend. If you have a friend that's a techie, who's a super nerd, it's no issue with, asking them questions on how you want to build what you want to build, and, how, even going through your idea with them. I am my belief with this whole metaverse, Web3, crypto. A few years ago, we were just calling it Bitcoin and crypto, and now we're calling it Web3. And all of this, I feel as though it doesn't matter what background you come from, as long as you're willing to contribute to an ecosystem that is friendly and that is inclusive. I think Web3 is for you.
Okay, that's really interesting. Now, here's another question that just came to me. One of the benefits of a centralized platform like you have in Web 2 is that where the network effects is the network effects, and the ease of developing those network effects, which is basically where to go to find everybody, right? Yeah. If everything's decentralized and everyone has built their own thing, then where do people congregate? How do people find each other?
Oh, that's a great question. Twitter, okay. The metaverse. I feel like end to end, there's always going to be an end to end with crypto epicenter. So I feel as though, especially when it comes to communication, Twitter is like the hotspot for people that's crypto. It's a hotspot for people who are just, big into this space and everything like that. Say you're not really big into social media. There's a lot of people who congregate in the metaverse. They use their VR headsets, and they get into Decentraland, and they're literally communicating with a friend across the country about a project, or doing daily tasks and doing daily things that, we do in real life. So I feel like there's no shortage of communication when it comes to this space. It's just a matter of, like I said earlier, like kind of finding your ecosystem and finding your niche.
Okay. So you brought up a great term, which is the metaverse, which is what we're talking about today. Also, what does that even mean? What is it? And, you gave us a little bit of a hint, but can you put that in lay terms, because I think I already know what it means. And it seems like new language for something that everybody's already kind of familiar with conceptually. But can you break it down for us?
Yeah. So I always open it up like this. So if you've ever played a video game before, if you ever played a video game, you're not new to the metaverse. All the metaverse is the virtual world. And so now that we have e-commerce that's being done in the metaverse, a lot more of adults, I believe, are getting more into like, how can I monetize off of the metaverse and do like, for example, if I want to walk someone's virtual dog, I can earn money for that. Like there's certain tasks that we do in daily life that can be monetized within the metaverse. And that's why I think in the future, especially for folks who are like introverts, who don't really like to go outside that much and everything like that, they're going to leverage the metaverse to do daily things and make money and pay their bills. And it's already been happening. Play to earn gaming is another thing where there's kids literally sitting down playing video games, online video games like DeFi Kingdoms, and making thousands of dollars per month. And this is a running joke that I always tell my uncle, about his kids. Like they might one day pay their tuition and shock you, or even pay your mortgage and shock you just because of this space and this play to earn and this cryptocurrency ecosystem. Now kids can, save, instead of saving dollars, stacking like lunch money, you can stack ETH and Bitcoin and hold it. And so now kids are learning how to kind of get into this world and also save and do certain things that they weren't like, it wasn't normal a few years back. Like this was kind of unheard of. So, I definitely think there's no end of the road when it comes to this space.
So you brought up something really interesting. And this is, I think, for those of us who grew up in the real world and didn't necessarily grow up with virtual reality. And also the first video game I played was Frogger. So there was no VR headset or whatever. And I think there's still a lot of people who have a lot of life left in them who want to get involved in this, but they aren't digital natives in that way, right? They're not crypto or metaverse natives. One of the things that, especially coming from TradFi, which is traditional finance, that's what crypto people call traditional finance, is where's the economic value sort of derived? Who are the buyers and who are the sellers? And what is the good that is traded? I understand if you're existing in a virtual world, you want a cool avatar, maybe you want a dog and you'll pay somebody, but where is it just money circulating in and of itself just through that economy? If you're a kid and you're playing video games, who is paying you and why, right? The play to earn, who is paying you and why, and what are they getting from you in return? What value are you generating by that game playing that creates a sustainable economic ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always kind of bring it back to like one of my favorite games that came out a few years ago that is a perfect example of what we're talking about with the metaverse and the transfer of goods. So Fortnite. When Fortnite came out, my sister was hooked on it. Even myself, I would say I was hooked on it too. And the whole thing is, it's kind of like a social thing. The type of skins that you have, the type of avatars that you purchase, the type of blade or axe that you have, that all that stuff is kind of a social side of things where, that one's more expensive than that one, or that one is like I would say a limited edition axe. It's a social aspect. So I would say there is digital utility to these things, but the value is relative. It's kind of like art in itself is relative to who is consuming it. It's right. The same thing with the metaverse.
Okay, so it's just the utility value that the user or buyer places on it that drives the economic value of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. That's great. So say, I want to rewind a little bit to what you were saying about if somebody wants to do something in Web3, they should just build it. What kind of things are people building to monetize? Like, how do you monetize, your Web3 presence or your Web3 project that you've built? How can you give us a bit of an example of the kind of projects that you're seeing people build and the sort of plan to monetize that and how it works?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to shout out a few folks that I've been working with. I would say one of the biggest things that have come out of this, and this is not a new thing either. I think DAOs have been a thing since 2014, but DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and all DAOs are I would say organizations of quote unquote people, or in the digital world we call them nodes, who get together and they establish governance rules with smart contracts, and they say we're going to work toward this goal. We have social DAOs, we have utility DAOs. There's all types of DAOs that are out there. There's government DAOs, there's all types of DAOs. A lot of the DAOs that I've been working with were the social DAOs. So I want to shout out to like 40 Acres DAO, Lyricist Lounge DAO, ATX DAO. I'm a part of them here in Austin, Texas. And essentially, a lot of these DAOs, they set out with a mission statement and a vision. And that mission and vision is either to help people in real life, right? Help their communities. For example, 40 Acres DAO is helping Black and Brown communities, people of color, kind of get into this world of what Web3 is, kind of populating information, everything like that. I think DAOs in itself is going to be the next big thing to kind of boost up like the attention to this space, because all you have to do is kind of like see what one is doing. Do you like their vision? Join one, and then you get this whole plethora of new information, whether it's about the world of decentralized finance, the legacy cryptocurrency world, how to invest, where to invest, all that stuff. So
DAOs are essentially formalized communities with a unified mission.
Yep.
Okay. But how does money circulate and transact in those DAOs?
Yeah. So typically
what kind of money is it? Is it crypto? Is it dollars, money as we traditionally know it? How does economic value get transferred or circulated?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially a DAO will establish a treasury. And in that treasury, people will deposit tokens, or deposit probably a native social token, or deposit whatever cryptocurrency the DAO has approved of. And that treasury could be used to do a lot of things. Like people have used their treasury to create NFT projects, to build wealth for certain social issues that have been affecting people. Like I know of one DAO that was raising money for the war in Ukraine and the war in Tigray, Ethiopia. Like, so there's a tons of utility that can be applied to the social impact side of things, and that's something that I was really interested in back in 2019. How can we use this technology beyond money? Like, okay, Bitcoin is nice, go to the moon. ETH is nice, but how can we use this blockchain technology to actually fix real world problems? And I think DAOs are kind of like the next step to do that in a more organized fashion.
So DAOs use the blockchain to organize themselves. DAOs are organized and the structure exists on the blockchain.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. So I want to go back to the metaverse a little bit and transactions in the metaverse, because our focus here is money. And in the metaverse, is it always transactions? Do they always occur in crypto? Like, I could see why you wouldn't necessarily need crypto to transact in the metaverse. If a virtual reality world decides that currency is US dollars and you just Venmo each other back and forth or whatever, then that's how it works. Or am I missing something?
The native currency in the metaverse would be cryptocurrencies. And it makes sense because cryptocurrencies, you have much faster transactions, and it's permissionless and trustless. So essentially the whole the world in which we're kind of like trying to escape with the whole transactions through just PayPal, Venmo, and credit card, it's easily I would say mitigated with just using cryptocurrency and just sending ETH. I send ETH to your wallet. You got your ETH. You're good on your side. I'm good on my side. And that's it. So I feel as though the native currency is whatever cryptocurrency that Metaverse chooses. And typically it's ETH.
Now, that's interesting. Now, why ETH instead of another cryptocurrency? Is it because of the ETH protocol that lends itself to that use case better? Or is it just because that's the cryptocurrency of choice?
ETH is the fourth runner. I would say ETH is the fourth runner of this whole world of Web3 and the metaverse. And the reason why is unlike Bitcoin, ETH is a protocol or platform that allows us to create decentralized applications. So a lot of the decentralized applications, the DAOs, the DeFi protocols that are being built, a lot of those are actually being built off of ETH. So that's why ETH is becoming kind of like the native token to this whole Web3 community.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, ETH does seem to have a lot more flexibility than, say, Bitcoin, which is primarily built for transactions. But then there are, of course, hundreds, if not thousands, of other tokens that have different use cases and different protocols. So ETH is just probably the best well-known or most well-known of that.
I would say the most well-known and kind of like the most used as well.
Right. Because there are network effects to money, right? So that's how that works. Now, do you see what about the intersection between the metaverse and real life? I was thinking about asking you something about why do people buy goods in the metaverse, but we really kind of already covered that. It's just like in the spirit of the game. It's kind of like art. It's utility because just people want stuff, so they buy stuff, and that makes sense. But is there scope for there to be an interaction between that? Like you buy sort of the new Air Force Ones or whatever it is, shoe for your avatar, and also a real life pair shows up on your doorstep 2 days later.
Yeah, so I want to give homage to Nipsey Hussle because Nipsey Hussle had a concept
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle. He had a concept, him and Asia Sandu had planned that out. They had a concept where they were going to use this virtual reality card, right? You get this card. It's almost, at the time, I would say it signified almost like an NFT. You have this card that signifies that, hey, you purchased this good from this store. And as time goes on, that card appreciates in value because, that clothing, that article of clothing also appreciates in value. Or back to what we were saying earlier about how us as human beings, we set the claims for how valuable something is, right? And so essentially, I do believe that we're shifting into a world where there'll be an added incentive to you holding on or you believing in a company early on, where you get some, like for example, one of my buddies, CJ the Smart Guy. If you purchase one of his clothing off of his website, Smart Guy Clothing, he'll send you a card that is like it signifies an NFT, and then over time, say his accounting firm blows up, right? His CPA firm blows up. That article also blows up. That NFT also blows up. So essentially, and this is a beautiful thing that I've seen as well with the I would say the integration between the metaverse and now artists, because now artists are leveraging the metaverse to bring more value to the people who believe in their fans, so that if a fan purchases an NFT over time, when their career is going well and everything like that, they can earn royalties on certain products, or they can earn extra capital off of certain products that they purchase from the artists. So I definitely think that this is a thing where we're putting more trust, and we're cutting out the middleman. We're cutting out the record labels and everything like that. We're putting more trust in the person, the actual person that's actually creating the art, that's creating the music, that's creating whatever product or service that we want as users.
Well, that's one of the things that has me most excited about this is, when I think about sort of a lot of the artists from like the 50s and the 60s, I'm talking about like Black people who got bad record label contracts, and they have these enduring classic hits that we literally play now that are sampled on hip hop records today. And they and their descendants and their estates don't get a penny of it because they had a bad contract and they basically only got paid for studio time and had to tour to put food on the table. And some of them met very sad ends, that this really empowers artists and people who create to maintain an economic interest in the product that they've created that everybody enjoys. Not to mention that also sharing that ownership with whoever, invested early. And so I think that's really, really great and empowering. And that whole decentralization ethos, I really get it. But, for those of us who don't get it, is Web3 and is the metaverse, is that going to become something that everyone eventually has to adapt to? For example, 20 years ago, maybe there were people who resisted the internet and now find themselves either way behind or having capitulated to using the internet, because you really can't get much done without the internet these days. Very few things can be accomplished. Very few people can live completely off the internet grid today in 2022. So is the metaverse going to be similar? Are we going to find ourselves forced to grocery shop in the metaverse or whatever, because that's just going to be the platform that it exists on, and that's how we access that good or service?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I wouldn't say the metaverse per se, but I would say it will be very imperative and advantageous for everyone to get on board of this whole cryptocurrency and Bitcoin wave, because that was there before this whole boom of now the metaverse is native parlance for folks. So I definitely think that Bitcoin in itself it's going to be necessary for everyone to at least accumulate some Bitcoin. But we can't have these conversations about, of course, pointing out the fact that we have a digital divide. Whether you're in America, whether you're in, wherever you are in the world, there's digital divides, and there are folk who don't even have access to the internet. And so we have to keep that out as well. But essentially, I wouldn't say necessarily like if you don't get into the metaverse, you'll get left. I would say if you need to get in the Bitcoin wave before anything else, and that's more important than all the other kind of like distractions that's out here in the sphere, in the space. Because in itself, there's only 21 million Bitcoins that's ever going to be created ever.
Right.
And, essentially, especially since we're talking about Black people and brown communities, we've been cut off from access of wealth for years, for centuries. We couldn't even purchase homes at a point in time. We weren't permitted to even purchase homes, which is like the base layer to building wealth in America. So essentially, I believe that Bitcoin and certain cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin in itself, is something that we need to get on top of, and we need to purchase it now. And we don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. We can buy fractions of Bitcoin, cost Satoshis, just like cents to a dollar. So,
yeah, no, I was reading some of Satoshi's writings over the weekend, and it's really brilliant, the technology that's laid out, but so many people don't have access to that information. And that's like a whole other conversation, the digital divide. Now, let's say I want to talk about, investment opportunities in Web3 and the metaverse. If I'm like not interested in coding, not interested in creating content, but I want to monetize this opportunity set, what kind of investment opportunities what kind of opportunities should I be looking for? You're already saying buy Bitcoin. I agree with that. Although we don't offer investment advice on this show, by definition, it's just education. But, certainly people should be looking at that. What are some ways to catch the early edge of this Web3 metaverse wave if you want to find an investment opportunity?
I would say diversify. And if you're not interested in coding or anything like that, that's completely fine too. Like I would say diversify, and you can look at, certain platforms where they're selling virtual land, like Sandbox. Sandbox is a really cool one. It's kind of like a gamerish type situation.
So is that sandbox.com or sandbox.io or?
Let me double check so that I'm not giving the wrong information.
Okay. Well, you can go ahead. We'll come back to the actual URL.
Yeah, it's sandboxvr.com.
Okay.
But you have Sandbox, you have Crypto Voxels. Put out an NFT project. If you're an artist and you've never really, dabbled into digital art before, try to transfer your art into a digital medium using Adobe Photoshop, right? And try to sell your NFT project. And then also, it's just a matter of also getting into this world of DeFi too. There is a need, and I'm going to establish this. There's an intrinsic need for more Black and brown people in the DeFi ecosystem. This comes from my experience, especially being a founder, but also the ex-head database engineer for a DeFi insurance company. There's a need for us because, unfortunately, what's happening is the same toxicity that comes from Wall Street, which is what we're escaping, and decentralized finance is coming into decentralized finance. So,
amen, sister. I know all about that. So you mentioned you're a founder. I really want to talk about your company, Sena Labs.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're building at Sena Labs is a DeFi risk advisory protocol. So it's going to be the first ever risk advisory protocol of its kind. Typically in DeFi, we have risk management, DeFi insurance. Those are the two that comes close to what I'm doing. But we have all types of things that happen in DeFi. And just to break it down, all decentralized finance is traditional financial services that's done on the blockchain. So that's everything from funding, derivatives, insurance, like I previously mentioned. It's a whole onslaught of things. And so what we're doing is we're analyzing the attacks and hacks that happen in the Web3 space. There we go. We're analyzing all the attacks and hacks that happen in the Web3 space. And then we're working on a schema where we can detect the attacks before they happen using some machine learning and AI research that I've been doing. And funny enough, I come from not only the DeFi insurance background, but I've also worked on analyzing adversarial attacks on machine learning transformers and machine learning, and then within machine learning domains such as natural language processing and computer vision. So I'm not new to analyzing risk, especially when it comes to adversarial attacks in this space. But I know as this world grows, Web3 grows, Metaverse grows, we're going to have more and more hacks that occur. So why not try to build a protocol that not only safeguards users, but also protects protocols, and then, of course, educates folks. So we have a attack library that's out now on GitHub that people can sift through and look through all the attacks that happen on DeFi protocols, NFT marketplaces, NFT projects, and then the OG crypto hacks that have happened since Bitcoin's inception.
Oh, that's a really great resource. And I think for people who are a little more advanced and ready to go down that rabbit hole, that'd be fascinating. Last year, I had a front row seat to that Maple exploit, and that was pretty interesting to witness so up close. And so I know this is a constant quote unquote threat because when you have decentralization, by definition, you may have some more vulnerability there. And I'm so fascinated that you're a DJ. I see you have a gamer's chair, but you're not really a gamer. You use that for DJing. Tell us more. Where can we find you? Can we find you DJing in some virtual world? Where do you do your sets?
Yeah. Right now I'm based here in Austin. So, I move around the city a lot. I just previously DJ'd during South by Southwest. A lot of content that it was fun. It was amazing. A lot of the content that I have is at saharasoundz.live. I'll put out that information. I'll give it to you, Brigette. But saharasoundz.live, I have all the events that's coming up. But in terms of the metaverse, I might dabble into that. One of my favorite metaverse artists, Sassy Black Cat, she actually does like whole events in the metaverse and gets paid. That's incredible.
That's incredible. I know Paris Hilton has done that because she's been a pretty vocal sort of adopter. Not that we want to imitate her, but she's definitely done some interesting things in the metaverse. And so love to see people like us, Black people, get involved in this because I have worked in the crypto space. I know exactly that same toxicity you're talking about. In fact, it's worse because there are fewer rules in crypto. So sometimes it's the worst offenders who leave TradFi and come to crypto and they don't even know it. So I really appreciate what you're trying to build and trying to build community. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise with us today. I mean, the time flew by. We're already over time, if you can believe it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brigette. I appreciate you for reaching out, and this has been amazing.
No, this is a pleasure, honestly. And thank you so much for helping round out our crypto series and helping to educate our audience on what this technology portends for our community and for really being an advocate. And just kudos to you, honestly, for being out there and being one of the few sort of front runners and being a girl who codes. I love it. I love everything about it. So it's really been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Please watch our other MIA Media Group shows. Mondays, The Business of Black Business at 1 p.m. with Jay Reynolds. Tuesdays, 7 p.m., My Money, Your Money with yours truly, Brigette Lumpkins. On Wednesday, we have Soul at 7 p.m. with Nikki Gellan. Thursdays, Lunch with Legacy Leaders at noon with Anne-Marie Sorrell. And The Flavor of South Florida at 7 p.m. with the legendary chef IIII. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's work together to close that gap.